Lebanon.
What I believe now is that it is incumbent on all parties in the region to work towards de-escalation and stability.
Still, the U.S. remains wary. Last month, Israel assassinated a senior Hezbollah commander near Beirut and a Hamas leader in Iran's capital. Iran's threats against Israel continue, vowing vengeance. Revenge for this criminal act is certain, said the head of Iran's Revolutionary Guard. The attacks over the weekend still left northern Israeli towns like Akku with piles of debris and lingering fears. 9-year-old Tamar Sada was asleep when air raid sirens went off.
How do you feel now? Do you still feel scared?
A little, but my sister was with me in the room and took it a bit harder, she told me. But I didn't cry. I was a little scared, but I didn't cry. She and her family rushed to their tiny safe room, where they narrowly avoided falling rocket debris that smashed through their family room ceiling. They're cleaning up the damage, but the danger remains. So back, Jose, to that just rescued hostage. You know, when we're talking about this man, it's important that we also mention that we have a bit of crucial information that's still outstanding here. How many people were killed, or what was the situation around his rescue? Because in previous operations, if you remember, the previous one where 3 people, including Noah Argamani, a famous hostage, sort of the face of the hostages, was rescued. Palestinians in the Gaza Strip, Palestinian health authorities said some 200 people were killed during that operation. The Israelis said it was about 100 people, but still, that's an enormous cost. We don't know those details for this rescue operation. Jose?
Matt Bradley in Tel Aviv, I thank you so very much. So, Admiral, let's kind of go into this a little bit. What we know, and it's, again, just happening a little over an hour ago that we've starting to get the information in. Let's start with this 52-year-old man who was rescued in southern Gaza in the tunnels. What's your interpretation of what that looked like?
Well, kudos to the Israeli Defense Forces. These kind of operations are very, very difficult. I've conducted a couple of them. In fact, Jose, in an area you and I both know well, in Colombia, helping rescue American hostages who were held there for a period of years by the FARC. The risks are to the hostage himself or herself, as well as Matt mentioned, to the potential for collateral damage, civilians who are in the vicinity. That in and of itself makes any rescue attempt very difficult. Now let's add degree of difficulty 9.9, which is doing it inside tunnels in closely guarded areas. So this is a complex, delicate operation. Hats off to the Israelis. Final thought here, by the way, this particular hostage is an Arab Israeli. It shows the Israelis will go after all of their citizens wherever they are.
You know, it's 320 days since these hostages were taken, 320 days since the massacre inside Israel, more than 1,100 people killed there. Just wondering, Admiral, how does on the one side, military operational readiness and planning to get the hostages that they can find, how does that affect or aid the negotiations to get them out via diplomatically?
Exactly the right question to be asking. And I would argue that every successful hostage rescue, and now the Israelis have brought out a handful, a very small number, obviously, but every time they do that, it actually puts pressure on Hamas because they say to themselves, the terrorist organization Hamas, the Israelis are showing capability to do this. Perhaps we ought to come to the ceasefire table in a serious way and negotiate. Let's hope that's how this plays out, Jose. But I am concerned as the negotiators come together again in Cairo that the strikes you mentioned up front in northern Israel, southern Lebanon, that's what will have a chilling effect on these negotiations if we continue to see the tit for tat back and forth across that border.
And I don't know, Admiral, if this operation that successfully rescued someone from the tunnels in southern Gaza may also be a message to Hamas leadership that apparently is in tunnels in southern Gaza.
Very much so. And if you are Sinwar, the leader of Hamas, and you watched the assassination of your organization's leader in the heart of Tehran during an inauguration, chalk that one up to exquisite intelligence on the part of the Israelis and deep strike capability. Now you're watching the Israelis penetrate your tunnel system, take away one of the crown jewels, your hostages that you're holding. Sinwar has got to be concerned about that ticking clock of Israeli revenge, which I think ultimately will find him, whether he's in a tunnel or not.
Admiral James Stavridis, always a pleasure to see you. I thank you very much for being with us this morning.
Thanks, Jose.
Turning now to battleground Georgia, where Democrats are suing the state's election board after 3 Republican members pushed through new rules critics argue conflict with the state law mandating certification of election results. Democrats say the new rules are designed to invite chaos. MSNBC legal correspondent Lisa Rubin is with us this morning. Lisa, what do these new rules do, and why are Democrats opposing them?
Jose, the new rules, first of all, there are a number of rules that the Georgia Election Board has passed recently. So many, in fact, that local election workers say, as you noted, it is inviting chaos for the November elections. But this lawsuit is about just 2 of them, both of which allow additional process prior to the act of certifying county-level election results. The certification of county-level election results is mandated by law to occur at a time and date certain. And that's the concern that Democrats and election officials are raising in their lawsuit here. They're saying that by allowing a reasonable inquiry before certification or allowing local officials to examine all election-related documentation before certifying, that may, in fact, give them the discretion not to certify at all and put Georgia's election results at risk when it comes to the counting of results nationwide in January, Jose.
Yeah, I mean, critics, but by the way, include Republican Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, are concerned these new rules could create chaos, election chaos. What is behind that?
What's behind that is that there is a strict deadline under Georgia's statute. Again, the Monday after an election by 5 p.m., all counties have to turn in their election results. But if the Georgia Election Board is telling counties that they can conduct a reasonable inquiry prior to certification, or that they have the right to examine all election-related documentation, a category they don't define, prior to certifying, Mr. Raffensperger is concerned that he won't get those county-level results. Without those county-level results, he can't then send them up to Governor Brian Kemp, who has the responsibility for sending in the certificate of electors. All of the election-related machinations that go into sending Georgia's results to Congress eventually in January are set up according to strict timelines, according to statute. And that's really the concern here, that by adding this additional discretion, you are setting up Georgia's 159 counties up for chaos if there are individual board members who say, wait a second, I didn't get a chance to examine all the documentation, or we didn't do a reasonable inquiry.
And so, Lisa, how likely is this lawsuit to be settled by the election?
Well, right now, Jose, those bringing the lawsuit, they're asking for a declaration that the election results have to be certified by that time and date certain. They're also asking the court to invalidate these 2 rules to the extent that they conflict with it. But of course, they have not asked for a ruling on a particular time and date themselves yet. They haven't asked the court to expedite it yet. I expect that we could see such a request asking the courts to really move this litigation along so that it is well and settled before the November election. We'll have to wait and see whether that happens.
Lisa Rubin, thank you so very much. Appreciate it. Up next, Special Counsel Jack Smith is taking new steps to try to revive Donald Trump's classified documents case after it was dismissed last month. Where his bid goes next. Plus, a judge stops the president's executive order providing a pathway to citizenship for up to 500,000 people in the U.S. And later, to build or not to build a border wall. how both sides are weighing in on this issue. We're back in 90 seconds. You're watching Jose Díaz-Balart Reports on MSNBC.
It's time to feed the dogs real food in the right amount. A healthy weight can help dogs live a longer, happier life. The Farmer's Dog makes weight management easy with fresh food pre-portioned for your dog's needs. It's an idea whose time has come.
It won't be hard to find someone to fix this. But before I started Angie's List, different story. A lot has changed for us at Angie since then, but the issues facing homeowners are the same. And the solution too, skilled local pros. Get started at Angie.com.
Did you know that 96% of customers recommend the Hartford? Boy, that's higher than most movie ratings. And those who switched to the AARP auto insurance program from the Hartford, they saved hundreds. For the savings, benefits, and best-in-class claims experience you deserve, make the switch today.
To get your free quote, call or click today. The Bucks got your back.
Looking good, guys.
Thanks. Vacations are better with the credit gods on your side.
I'm coming up.
Rewards once available to the few are now accessible to the many. Earn points for travel with Credit One Bank and live large.
It's hard to explain what this feels like. Moving piles of earth, towing up to 4,000 pounds, cutting millions of blades of grass. Nothing compares to experiencing it for yourself. You just have to get in the seat.
14 past the hour. Now to the latest on the legal drama surrounding former President Donald Trump. Special counsel Jack Smith has launched his bid to revive the classified documents case against Trump. The request to a federal appeals court in Atlanta comes about a month and a half after Judge Eileen Cannon, she was overseeing that case, threw out the charges, saying Smith had been appointed to his job illegally. In an 81-page court filing, Smith and his team says Judge Cannon improperly threw out the charges and that she erred when she handed down her bombshell ruling dismissing the case. With us now, NBC News correspondent Vaughn Hilliard, who covers Donald Trump, and Barbara McQuaid, former U.S. attorney who is now a law professor at the University of Michigan. She is also an MSNBC legal analyst. So, Barbara, how high is the bar for the 11th Circuit to reinstate this case?
Well, because this is a question of law, the Court of Appeals uses a standard it refers to as de novo, which means anew. They take a fresh look at this. When there are factual determinations by a judge, they're very deferential because the judge was in the courtroom and had a chance to observe the demeanor of witnesses. So that requires clear error. But here, it's a fresh look. So it's not a very high standard at all. If they simply disagree with Judge Cannon's view, they are free to reverse her decision. And based on the case law in every other court that has decided this issue, including the Supreme Court, I'd be hard-pressed to see the 11th Circuit agreeing with what Judge Cannon did here.
Barbara, how unusual is this aspect in an already completely unusual case?
It's very unusual, Jose. As I said, the special counsel regulations have been challenged before and have been upheld by every other court that has seen it. And I think it's so important to recognize that this is not a decision on the merits of this case. It has nothing to do with the guilt or innocence of Donald Trump. It is all about whether special counsel Jack Smith had the authority to begin this case to begin with. I imagine that if ultimately Judge Cannon is proved right, then the remedy for the Justice Department would be to start the case over, filing with DOJ attorneys or the U.S. attorney in Miami. But as I said, it is such an outlier from all